All right, welcome to this explainer. We're going to break down a pretty wild international incident where a ceasefire, something that was supposed to bring peace, ended up starting a huge diplomatic fight instead. We're going to walk through the source material to see exactly how it all went down.
So this is really the question at the heart of the whole thing, isn't it? You have a peace deal, but the moment it's signed, the two main parties start yelling that it means completely different things. How does that even happen? And what kind of mess does it create?
So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the ceasefire itself, then we'll unpack the big disagreement over Lebanon. After that, we'll see how Australia jumped into the mix, look at the source's really harsh take on it, check out a very different American response, and finally, wrap up with what the commentator thinks is at stake for the whole world. Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. A ceasefire deal gets struck between the United States and Iran, but, instead of things calming down, it basically lit a new fire and sparked an immediate, very public fight. And man, this thing unraveled fast. I mean, the ink was barely dry on the deal when Iran reportedly shuts down a super important waterway. And then, just hours later, they're out there publicly accusing the US of already breaking the agreement. And right here, this is the core of it. The whole dispute, according to the article, boils down to this one single issue. What's happening in Lebanon with Israel and Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed group that operates right on Israel's northern border? So you have to ask, how could this one issue just blow up the entire deal? Well, this wasn't some tiny misunderstanding. The viewpoint we're looking at is that there were two completely opposite ideas of what this ceasefire was even supposed to do. This lays out the stalemate just perfectly. On one side, you've got the U.S. position, which the source says was that the deal was strictly about Iran, Israel, and the Gulf states, and it specifically left out Lebanon. But on the other side, Iran's position was that stopping the fighting in Lebanon wasn't just part of the deal, it was a deal breaker, probably because Hezbollah is one of their most important allies in the region. And to really hammer home the American stance, the analysis gives us this quote. It's super direct. It's basically saying, look, from our point of view, there was no confusion here. Lebanon was never, ever on the negotiating table. So, with the U.S. and Iran in a total standoff, a new player enters the scene. Let's take a look at how, according to the source, the Australian government decided to publicly weigh in on this very specific, very sensitive point. And this is the key statement that the source highlights. Australia comes out and publicly says, hey, we believe this ceasefire should apply to Lebanon too. And in doing so, they effectively sided with the demand Iran was making. Okay, so this move by Australia, well, this is what leads us right to the central argument of the source material. The commentator sees this not as some neutral diplomatic effort, but as a really deliberate and harmful choice in a super high-stakes game. Wow, the language the source uses here is incredibly strong. It's not just hinting, it's flat out accusing Australia of taking a side, and not just any side, that's siding with Iran against its key ally, the United States, and at the same time, betraying Israel. And to back up that heavy criticism, the source brings in this quote from the Israeli ambassador. It's meant to highlight the real-world stakes here, basically saying that Australia's call for a ceasefire in Lebanon is ignoring the fact that Israeli citizens are under constant attack from Hezbollah. So while Australia is using careful diplomatic words, the source introduces a completely different American tone. This one from former President Donald Trump, who it says helped make the deal. And his response is presented as the polar opposite of Australia's. Yeah, so there's no confusion there, is there? This is not diplomacy. This is a direct threat of overwhelming military force if the deal, as he sees it, isn't followed to the letter. So let's just quickly break that down. You've got a show of force. The military's not going anywhere. You've got a clear threat. The shooting starts. You have a reminder of what the deal was actually about, no nukes, and a bottom-line demand that the Strait of Hormuz has to stay open. So, to wrap it all up, the analysis takes this one diplomatic blow-up and says it's actually a huge moment for the whole world. The commentator argues this isn't just about one broken ceasefire. It's a test of something way, way bigger. The argument is that the whole world, especially rival countries, is watching to see how the West handles this. And the outcome is going to send a huge signal about Western strength, its unity, and whether it will stand up for its allies and its own security. The first big question the source puts out there is aimed right at the US and its alliances. It uses Australia's move to frame this as a defining moment, where America has to decide, do you stand with your old ally, Israel, even when other friends seem to be backing away? And then it builds on that, zooming the lens out even further. The argument here is that any sign of weakness or fighting amongst Western allies will look like a golden opportunity to competitors like Russia and China, a sign that maybe the West's resolve is cracking. And the source leaves us with this final, really provocative question. It draws a direct line from the Australian leader's position to a potential final outcome in the war, basically forcing you to think about the ultimate consequences of the path they've chosen.